Evolutionary.org Hardcore 209 is coming your way. Tracking changes in a log by Para Pharma. We're going to talk about what understanding a log is, details to include when you do a log, why logging is important, details to include, including food photos, why Para Pharma is loved by pros. It's going to be a really important podcast. We got a lot of logs on evolution.org. A lot of people are doing logs. A lot of people are having success beyond their wildest dreams thanks to them doing their logs. So we're going to help you do logs and give you some pointers on how to do a log because it's so important. We're going to explain all of that. First, let me remind everyone we are on Spotify, we are on Apple, we are on different platforms out there. We like to grow this podcast organically. We don't buy clicks, we don't buy views, we don't say controversial nonsense just to for clickbait. We don't gossip. We're not a bunch of church girls gossiping on this podcast. We bring you the good quality information to help you get the most out of your body. And that's what we're all about on the forum. So come on in, subscribe, like, comment, do all that stuff. Tell your friends and family. We want to continue growing this podcast. We're already the number one bodybuilding podcast out there. We want to be the number one podcast of all. Okay. So that's what our goal is. We want to be as big as the biggest podcasters out there, bring you the best information. So let's get right into it. Mobster really wanted to talk about this topic. I'm going to give him the floor to talk about understanding what a log is. Why don't you start us off, Mobster?
Yeah, look, I mean, in very, very simple terms, Steve, arguably you're talking about what we call or used to call, and you can still buy these guys, a training diary. But realistically, it's a bit more than that because a training diary would literally just list the workout that you did, the amount of steps you got for the day, how many calories you burnt during cardio according to the machine or the app or whatever you were using. And it wouldn't necessarily include other things. Better training logs or better training diaries would sometimes, and I'm thinking of Dorian Yates would do this, he would have sometimes what was aching, how we felt if he made a change, whether that change was being successful, which is quite analytical. And we're going to get into that as well. I would argue that a log is a little bit more than that. So what we see, and we're going to talk about some of the detail that's included, you will see quite often, I'm just thinking of some of our most popular and successful logs on the forums, would include photographs of your food. Now, I would sometimes say, the fuck am I doing if I'm taking a picture of my breakfast every day or my lunch every day or the protein shake I've done? And yet, perversely, the greatest success we've seen is the guys at Food Prep. And because they have to make the food look good and be clean and healthy, ironically, they have the greatest success. So things like photographs of your food. And again, it's very boring, but maybe there's an argument to be made in that particular regard for social media. But here there's actually a sensible reason for the reasons I've just talked about. Other things would include, and we're going to go into details about these things and why. But for example, making a note of your measurements, making a note of your body fat levels, taking photographs of your condition. And we're going to again get into specifics of to best get the pictures, best get this information, and so on and so forth. What we sometimes see included is feedback from coaches and so on, right? So this is what a log is. It's not a workout diary as such. It's a little bit more than that. And what I have occasionally, and this is what I'll give you some of what I've seen as an argument against having a log or tracking the information quite this way. And it's probably the turn of phrase, which is instinctive training. And the idea of instinctive training, ironically, the best version is where you actually listen to your body properly. But again, that's difficult to do. With very hard for us to track ourselves and be analytical in that way. But sometimes it's as simple as not being sore today so I can train this muscle again. But arguably, the old version of instinctive training was literally train what you want to when you got to the gym in accordance to how you felt on that particular day. And that was as much about mood as anything else. The reality of the situation is, and I'll let Steve come in a second as well, is that if you was working in a sports team, if you were a high-end athlete, and you were working with gym instructors, you were working with prep coaches, you're working with, especially in sports teams, Steve, strength and conditioning, I would expect that strength and conditioning coach, and I'm thinking again of American pro football, to have a huge program, very similar to an accounts type software type program like Excel, something similar, and literally be monitoring the performance of the team, the performance of individuals, and so on and so forth. And literally that way they can enable certain levels of peak performance through the season for the big games when we need the top players available. And this is super, super important. It's not, you could monitor the team as a whole, but that doesn't really work. You really need to have that monitoring. And again, these people are paid decent salaries, Steve, approaching six figures in some cases, even for mid-level teams. And I would expect a top coach to do that. Steve, I've seen this example thrown up even at high schools where a team performs very well in the state that they live in and so on and so forth. And the better schools and the better teams have decent strength and conditioning coaches associated with the teaching staff, and these staff are monitoring what you're doing. So arguably,
Oh,
Steve, the log is a way of monitoring yourself, but
that's a
again,
good point.
occasionally with other people's input. What do you think?
Yeah, and in NFL, for example, they have things like analytic companies. After the game is played, you've got these
Yep,
guys, they
yep,
basically will
yep,
study every single play on every single
yep.
player and
How many
rank,
contacts, how
give
many
them
kicks, how
points.
many yards run, everything.
Yeah, and it's tracked, and then they have, the it's all tracked live where they track your like you said, they track all your stats and stuff. So in reality, you know, they'll determine if a player is due for a new contract, if a player they're just going to let them walk in free agency, if they're going to cut a player, if a player isn't worth a damn, based on all these analytics. And at the end of the day, we don't have access to that. So for us, we have to, as regular people who aren't tracked, there's not someone following you around in the gym with a camera watching you train and tracking all this stuff for you. So you have to track it and do the best you can to so you can correct anything that happens. That's another part too. The best players in the NFL, they love that shit. They're not scared of it. They embrace it because they want to see their weaknesses. They want to see what they have to improve on. They want to get better. And they'll say, "You know what? I graded really bad for this game, and you know what I need to do? I need to go into the film room and watch everything and watch my play all over again to see where I can improve so that my next game I grade much better. And this way I get more money. This way I get a nicer contract next time." So all this stuff matters and we have to do it. Now, over the years, I've seen
Steve,
gym rat.
sorry, just to interrupt, some contracts include certain performance related benefits. And if you could argue with the team that they didn't pay you for something that you know that you did because you were tracking and monitoring your own statistics, you can then go back. I'm thinking of soccer and NFL, Steve, where it's not unusual, for example, they will get extra bonuses for goals scored or touchdowns scored in NFL. You'll get extra bonuses for the goals or uh, even passes to other team member. That's both soccer and NFL again, especially in the important matches, which are bigger than the normal bonuses and so on and so forth. So you've got to have that ability to go back and say, hang on, you shortchanged me by $100,000, guys, because I know for a fact I helped with that try. I know for a fact I helped with that kick. I know for a fact I helped with that goal. So absolutely, it benefits both the player and the team.
The cricket is on. That's your favorite sport, cricket. So at the end of the day, look, over the years, you're gonna see. I've seen gym rats. I've seen you seen the same thing, Mobster, in the gym. Pro bodybuilders, all the way from gym rats to pro bodybuilders. They have a notepad. They're tracking their stuff. They're writing it down. Me, I've always done it mentally. I've always tracked my stuff mentally. So it's good. Some people do things differently. Some people can retain information better than others. Some people can't. So at the end of the day, it's good to take that information and put it in your log on the forum. And that's what it's all about. That's what understanding a log is and why it's important. This way you can always go back and look at it. You fill up a notepad full of 200 pages. You know how hard it is to go back and go through all that? I mean, it's really hard, but if you put it on on a thread with
Hmm.
pictures with everything and organize it, you can always just go back with a click of the mouse to page
Yeah.
one or page
And it's
five
kind of
or page
it's
20.
kind of searchable, Steve, because you can literally search under
Yes.
your own
You
name
can
and
search.
and do it
Yes.
that way. Yeah, you can search for certain things that you want to look at. You
Yes.
could
You
literally
could.
put your own name in and
Exactly.
photographs, and literally see what photographs and media come up.
And the nice
I've
thing too,
had sorry,
and the nice thing too,
I've
let me
had
just add
yeah,
this. And the nice thing on our forum too is in your signature,
yeah,
the it's automatically, once you start a log, it automatically puts your thread for your log into your signature. So if you do a log for 2025, then you do a log for 2026 and 2027, and you basically have multiple logs, different logs, you do one for each year or one for every 2 years, whatever you want to do, or two a year, whatever, it will track your logs in your signature. So you can always go into your signature and literally click the link and you'll go to one of your logs on there. So that's a great way to organize everything and structure it so you can go back and re-look at your prior logs. And it takes like just a click of the mouse. So it's really, really good to have all that as a reference point, and you will improve. It's just like a farmer.
yeah,
A farmer's year, season by
yes,
season, if their
yeah.
crop isn't good, they've got to track everything, the weather, they got to track the bugs, they got to track,
What
this
chemicals did I use?
the,
When did
yeah,
I plant
the
the
frost, the
crops?
first frost of the year.
Yeah.
It's called the Farmer's Almanac, and farmers have
Yes.
used that for years. Now there's
Oh, please. We
websites,
got it in this country,
apps.
Stephen Whitaker's Almanac, and it's so detailed.
Yeah.
The
Now
information in it's
everything
crazy.
is. Now you don't have to get a book every year called the Farmer's Almanac. You can just go online and look at apps and look at all these specs and statistical and analytics to determine when you should put your
Yeah,
crops, when you should put them out, when's the first frost, all this stuff. So it's really fascinating to see. You can see trends over time, the global warming,
yeah.
how that's affecting, when I should put in my crops even earlier because of the global warming. Everything's
Yes,
warming up.
yes,
We had a
yes.
farmer on the podcast years ago from like Alberta or Saskatchewan or something. He was a farmer and he talked about this. He's like, 50 years ago, my father and grandfather, they put the crops in a different time because things are getting warmer. So if you don't track that, you will end up losing 2, 3 weeks of your harvest, and you'll go from making a profit for the year to losing money. So we've been tracking this stuff. Humans have been tracking this shit for years and years and years, hundreds of years, thousands of years. People on ships, your ancestors, Mobster, when they were sailing
Yeah,
from Britain to America and to Canada and
yeah.
taking over these countries, South Africa, and pillaging, the tribes and the natives and
Yeah, we
stealing
kicked ass.
and stealing from everyone. They depended
Come
on
on.
that. They had to know when was hurricane season. We couldn't go to the Bahamas and steal the gold from all the
Whose
native.
ass are we kicking this week? Whose country are we stealing tomorrow?
They knew they couldn't go there in this September because it was hurricane season. The hurricane would come and take your boat, which so they knew not to go to a certain island because if you went to a certain island, the natives wouldn't welcome you to pillage them. They would actually eat you. So they had
Yeah.
a book which told them avoid this island or go to this island.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You'd get an
I've forgotten
arrow
the name of
into
it.
your bald
I've
head.
read one of the classic book. I read one of the classic books of fiction, Steve, Shogun, and I can't remember the name of the Dutch slash English main character, but specifically was the knowledge of the world and the tides and the flows of the ocean and all this kind of stuff and the trade winds was a enormously important thing. And this, I've forgotten the name that he has for his role, but essentially, not only does he have one or two of the first decent maps and particular routes that no one else was using, the Dutch were very good before when they got to the east to Japan, but he had the knowledge of all these other things, and that knowledge before it was put down on paper was massively. He would be hired for a high fee. He would be, if they went there and then they brought this stuff back, even if it was sales and deals that they'd done rather than robbery, pillaging, and whatever else, then they could literally go away for 2 years, come back with enough on board to make the investors incredibly rich, and make it literally after 2 years' work he could retire. So it was super, super important. Here's the thing, and I've had paper logs, and I still take a notebook with me to the gym. I much prefer that over an app because an app will not have necessarily the parameters that you want, and it's not always interactive. A lot of our listeners will use apps. The only thing I don't like about that is they'll literally stop what they're doing to put the information in. I have seen a buddy, Steve, who's got a app on his phone where he can put the phone on a small tripod on the floor, and it will watch his form. And it literally is like the old laser devices they've used in NFL for athletes and athletics in the past. And this will monitor his squat form and his bench form to make sure that the pathway that he's moving away from A to B. And this is via a phone, which never used to be doable. Equally, and we've had people on these shows when we've talked specifically about their log and the benefit of them running a log and why they've been successful rather than analysing and tracking changes as we are today. I've had logs on another forum associated with grip for 20 plus years. I've gone back and I said on a previous show, I picked up an old training book the other day, which I've still got here, held together with elastic bands, and I'm literally doubling and tripling the weights that I used to start with and get first, second set back in the day. And so here's the thing again, and we're going to get specifically into the tracking changes and analytical bit shortly, but it's very difficult for most people to sort of really get a handle properly on what they're doing. And we're going to say why. That's super, super important. I want to touch upon now, and we can expand in some detail here. Steve was not in a rush. The detail needed, arguably, the more detail, the better. There is a little bit where sometimes, and I could be guilty of this, if I put into my log how I talk, it'd be 1,000 fucking words every time I posted. And I don't need to do that. And I have seen introductions to logs, but it's 3, 4, 5 paragraphs. And I'm thinking, I've only got so many hours a day to read this. But equally, there is some data that you kind of want to have in your log. And if not every single time you post, certainly on a regular basis. So certain things, for example, daily, which would be your diet, 100% Steve. So food, training, that's not necessarily every day. But I do like to see, and I see this quite often, Steve, where people will only post the sets and the reps and
Yeah.
they won't include the weights.
Let's
That's,
talk about
yeah.
each
So we'll
and
talk
kind of
about
be
each thing,
detailed.
yes.
So
Yeah.
why don't you start with food? Give your thoughts on
Food,
details with food to
right.
include.
I would argue that for the most part, and I mean, look, I could probably do better than this in this regard myself, but as the vast majority of our listeners are focused on how they look, and I don't just necessarily mean bodybuilding, but getting lean, getting into shape, and so on and so forth, the aesthetic side, food there is arguably even more important to you than it is for me as a lifter. I've got a pretty good handle on what I eat on a daily basis, and I know, for example, that the day before I squat, Steve, I like to have a big beefy meal. But as a bodybuilder, as the aesthetic, food is way more important. So we definitely want to see your diet, and I mean literally the food that you ate, and preferably prepped food over shop brought or restaurant food. And ideally, again, the macros. So the protein, the fat, the carbohydrate. The level of fiber seems to be very important. And we have seen people have great improvements with manipulating the fiber value. And obviously calorific intake, and that's probably the be all and end all right there. It's things that we sometimes pick on, and this is the reason why we want to see these details of the food included. I will see shop brought because I'll recognize the label that they've used an app to scan the barcode off a tin, off a package, whatever. And I'll go, hang on, there's zero food prep to you. You haven't even peeled a potato here. Let's see more of that. Well, things like, and Steve and I are quite big on this, as fruit and vegetables. You've got fiber, you've got rice, you've got pasta, you've got good meat, protein sources, etc., etc. Where the fuck is the fruit and vegetables? So this is the stuff that we want to see. What do you think on the food, Steve, before we talk about training?
Yeah, and I think it's still important, even if you're a power lifter, to be eating clean. When I used to lift heavy, if I ate the wrong thing a couple hours before my training or an hour before my training, I would not have a good workout. So it's still very important to be aware of eating clean foods. And a lot of people like to post meals. They'll post macros. They'll post calories, carbs, fats, proteins, and getting pictures up of their food as
Yep.
well. That helps keep them honest, and it
The
helps.
source of your fat, Steve, nut oils and fish oils versus uh, vegetable type fats, etc., that polyunsaturated and all the rest of that kind of shit that you and I are
Yeah, the
big on.
refined oils and all that stuff we
Yes,
want to avoid.
yes, yes.
So it's very
Yeah.
good, especially if you're trying to cut, you're overweight, you're trying to cut. Posting up some meals and posting up what you're eating specifically is very important because this way, we can go in there and help you eliminate the dead weight out of your diet, and get you healthier. Like swapping out sausage and bacon for
Yep,
a good quality beef and good quality
yep.
chicken and good quality eggs is going to make a big difference. Processed meats is one of the worst
Even
things.
one more, Steve, just on the food aspect, a few I've seen this recently being reminded to people is digestive aids for your food, because we will sometimes try to consume more protein or more carbohydrates, etc., especially if we're bulking up or training for a specific instance. And the sheer volume of food for some people, even healthy food, can be difficult to
Yeah, good
digest.
point on supplements. Talk about some of
Yeah.
the other supplement things you should include too. What kind of
Yeah.
supplements?
So for example, Steve, and again, I occasionally get asked what supplements I'm doing, and we do like to see this, and sometimes the list can be quite impressive. But things like whether you're using a digestive aid, whether you're using fish oils, whether you're using some sort of joint products, are you using creatine? Are you using vitamin products? Sometimes we will pick the bones over a little bit of the better brands that we've seen out there, for example, with regards to vitamins. We obviously still want you to have a varied and organically based diet, ideally home prepped, as I said before. But then we'll talk about, for example, especially if you're on a restricted diet, where these other things become more important. Even sometimes with the fish oils and nut oils, if a person's on a restricted diet, but they're using a steroid, which can be quite drying to their physique, that can give you joint issues. So stuff like that. Even things like the texture of your skin and how your skin can feel dry when you're on certain restricted diets. So again, a small amount of healthy
Yeah.
oils will
It's
help you with
important to
your skin.
it's important to post that. Let's say you're on a cycle and you post up your blood pressure. We're going to get to that in a second. When we talk, that's another thing we're going to talk about. But let's say, you've got bad blood pressure and your liver values are strained, all this stuff. Obviously, we're going to come back and ask, are you on support supplements? Oh yeah, I am. I'm taking 200 milligrams of Tutka. Then we'll come back and say, you know what, 200 milligrams of Tutka, just 200 milligrams of Tutka isn't good enough. Just a little bit of milk thistle isn't good enough. Milk thistle, is great for grandma to help her liver, but when you're a bodybuilder and using oral
Yeah.
steroids, it's not going to cut it. So we're going to come back and say, you know what, you need to take something like N2 guard. N2
Yes.
guard has milk thistle, it has Tutka, it has
Is
Percolib,
it the
it
right
has,
dose? Is it the right form? Is it
yeah.
standardized?
So that
And that's just,
correction
yeah,
can literally make the difference between you having
yes,
liver issues
good
and
blood
kidney
test
issues and
results.
heart
Yeah,
issues
yeah,
and not. So these are very important details to include when you're doing a log. Supplements are very, very important. And you can come on the forum and look at some of these guys on the forum. We're going to have an interview with S-Gens coming up on a
yeah.
future episode coming up next week. And look, at the end of the day, his supplement list is very, very, very thorough
Oh,
and very,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
very
yeah.
extensive. And this is what you got to do if you're going to.
Even sometimes, Steve, and I've done this from time to time, and all the aspects that we're going to cover, you can argue this as well. I was some, and I probably again have been guilty of this in the past. I bitched the other day because someone, my quote unquote training buddy, really fucking turns up, was saying, I think you should do this and I think you should do that. And I said, literally, we talked about that this morning, and you're now bringing it back to me as a suggestion. You're taking the piss. But it can be one of those things where I've sometimes asked the person, why are you doing what you're doing? If you can't justify it to me, and I'm not that important in the great scheme of things, then it doesn't make sense that you're doing it just because that's something you've done for ages. I've done this. That's what a buddy told me in the gym. So you've got to look at those things as well. So we will sometimes say, okay, why are you using that supplement? Why that dose and so on? An obvious thing here, training, right? Okay, so again, I'm going to focus for the most part on the bodybuilder and the aesthetic, the majority of listeners for this show, the majority of members on our forum, because that's where, that's where our target audience is. But I will touch upon why even some of the suggestions I'm going to make would obviously be appropriate for strength training, athletic training. So what I see will be, and again, it has to be said, you can train on different equipment with different dumbbells, you can train in pounds, you can train in kilos. It still needs to be tracked, regardless. If you're training on Panetta and I'm training on Universal, the fucking weight won't feel the same. I don't care what it says on the stack. And I've literally gone from one gym to another gym and used a different pull down machine, homemade or something like that, at another gym, and it felt different. And I couldn't do the same weight on this old piece of shit, whatever the fuck it was. But you still should track this information. And here's why. So whether it's sets, reps, whether it's overall volume, overall tonnage per workout is a great one that scientists like to use. It's literally, they do either the tonnage, that's the total pounds by combining the sets, the reps, everything all together, or the output, which is normally measured in watts. But for our purposes, it's going to be, are you stronger than before? Have you increased the volume? Have you done more? I will do periods of the year, Steve. I'm doing it right now with the heavy hammer dumbbell curls that I use. There are no bigger dumbbells. So I'm using the heaviest dumbbells there, and it's god awful. I know that my old PR was 14 reps. I did 13 on with each hand, one at a time, it has to be said, on Thursday. And it's god awfully hard. But I know that I've done 14 in the past. So I need to see if I can get to 14, and God help me, if I decide to do it, I might not to get to 15 because that would be a PR and it's more volume. I can't literally go heavier, so I have to increase the reps with the weight that I'm using. So that's an obvious thing. Guys, and I do measure this. I do have an app on my phone. It's one of the few that I allow, so to speak, for sporting purposes. Your daily steps. I would also argue when it comes to that, that set that thing in the medium because you can have one that counts a step when you cough and other ones that are sort of literally will only count half the steps you're doing. It's not measuring all your activities. So somewhere in the middle setting, and that allows for you to cardio work, conditioning work, staying mobile, staying flexible. You might even include the stretches you do. I've seen that included in lists, Steve. So on the training stuff. What about you for training before we talk about other aspects as well?
Yeah, and I think one of the most important reasons, maybe if you can dumb it down to like one sentence, Mobster, for me, is you won't know what's working and what isn't. How many times we see people
Yeah.
just show up to the gym and just they're just doing random training and there's no structure to it. There's no split
Oh, worse,
routine,
Steve. Worse for me is I've seen
and
people
they
come to the
don't
gym and they're doing the
improve.
same fucking shit. Yeah, the same
but
shit.
but you're not improving and you wonder
Yeah,
why am I not improving, and then I'll
yeah,
come to you and say, what have you been doing, and be like, oh, I have no idea. I just come to the gym and just work out. I just go and just
yeah.
do whatever. I just
A
go to where the
few
hot I
times
go where
I've
the
been
hot chick
pushing.
is training and train next to her. If you're not tracking that, then how are we supposed to correct?
A few times, Steve, I've been grinding like a motherfucker on whatever program I'm on at that time. And I literally just changed something yesterday for close grip bench press. And I was thinking, right, so I want to do 3 sets of 3. And last week, I nearly done 3 sets of 3 with 177.5 kilos. I think it was 2 reps, 3 reps, and 2 reps. So I was 2 reps off. And yesterday, trained on my own, although I got someone to spot me, I decided instead to do multiple singles with 180 kilos, so 396 pounds. And I know that in the past, and again, I can go back in my log and see this, what I did when I did my absolute all-time best bench press, which is 202.5 kilos, 445.5 pounds, nearly 446. So I can literally go back in my training log, either the paper one or online, and search for my own training log. I just keyword close grip bench press in my log and see what comes up, and it will say this is what you did as you approach the maximum weights that you use, and it's what you peaks out on your cycle. The same thing can apply. This would especially apply for a competing bodybuilder. What did I do last year? Did I change the angle that I trained my chest on? Was I using dumbbells and not the pec deck machine to get a really good stretch on my chest, and so on and so forth? So you absolutely need to be able to track this stuff. Even things like, and again, I referred to Dorian Yates earlier when it comes to the training, it can be difficult, and we are going to talk about photographs as well, to see what your chest, and again, I'm using that as an example, what your chest looked like when you were lean. Did it improve doing this exercise? Did the judges give you a better mark or better feedback at the competition, and so on and so forth? And was that as a result of you using a certain machine? Even, and I just use the pec deck again as an example, the chest fly, if you like, machine, moving your ass forward to the front of the seat to train the angle so that it was hitting a slightly different position on your chest rather than having your ass all the way in, or the reverse. And that sounds like a silly thing to think about, but ultimately, what you present on stage in the case of a bodybuilder, especially competing bodybuilder, to win is every single fucking reason why you're going to the gym, while you're dying. And the ability to track that information, especially when it comes to training in this regards, the sets that you did that work the best, the volume that works the best for you. Yes, you sometimes need to change these things. That includes myself again and Steve. Knowing when to change. Has the training ground to a halt? Has my chest not improved? That's not just you thinking, that is literally paperwork, or in this case, a training log, and it shows you that you've stagnated. Your chest looks the same as it did 6 months ago. What the fuck do I need to change? Guys, can you give me a new chest routine? Or is it literally, okay, you need to do more of a stretch, you need to be warming up, you need to be pre-exhausting, and so on and so forth. And again, it can be difficult, which we'll touch upon, to analyze these things, but a log with the information in there makes it that much fucking easier, Steve.
So
I've
let's talk
made a
about
note here, PDs.
Yeah, let's talk about PEDs a little bit. Obviously, this is crucial. If something goes wrong on cycle, maybe you're retaining too much water, maybe you're having side effects. It's important to know what PEDs you're on and how to improve the cycle as you go. So maybe you need to head to Para Pharma and get some different ancillaries. Maybe you need to head to Para Pharma and get a different steroid. Maybe you need to add something else. Maybe you take something out. Adjusting dosages. Maybe you got to adjust your testosterone dose. You're retaining too much water, lower your testosterone dose. Maybe you got to increase another steroid higher. So it's really very, very important to be tracking your PEDs, and you have to tell us what PEDs you are on and the dosages you're
Yes.
on. Don't
Yes.
just say I'm on Test, Tren, and Winstrol. Okay, well, what are the dosages? It makes a big difference
Yes.
what the dosages are. So that's
I'm getting
very, very
carpal
important.
tunnel, Steve. How much eye user growth you're using. Should I
All that.
drop the trend, or should I lower the trend? And so on. Yeah.
Talk about mood feelings.
Yeah. So this is a very subjective thing. And again, I have seen this. And the best way to do this, I would argue, Steve, is on a scale of 1 to 10. You and I talked about the roid rage idea on a recent show that we recorded, and I said that the one or two studies that touched upon this had both the athlete, the user of the steroids, and where possible the partner, male, female, animal or vegetable, also keep notes. And they used a scale of 1 to 10, I believe, to register as best as possible in a self-analyzing kind of way they're feeling. Prince Daddy 55 on the Evolutionary forums has his androgen rage, and he will literally, and I'm like, the fuck is that? I literally asked him one day, what do you mean? And he said, literally how I feel on that daily basis. Am I irritable? Am I placid? Do I feel good? Do I feel assertive? And so on and so forth. And he gives himself a scale. I think it might even be a percentage of how irritable or not irritable he is. Now, mood is a very subjective thing. It's affected by our hormones, the time of day, whether we had
Well,
sex last night,
that's the
whether we were
all the more
hungry.
reason to include it, because if things are
Yes,
going good, we've seen some guys. I saw some logs
yes,
this morning. A few
yes,
guys are saying, "Yeah, I'm doing really good. I'm sleeping great. My mood is good. I have lots of energy." That's great. Keep
yes.
That's good that you reported that in your log. Now you have a reference
Because if
point
you
to.
have a day when it's shit and it doesn't feel so good, what is it? Did you miss out on 2 hours
Yeah, maybe it's you switched the steroid stack you were doing. Maybe something was going on in
sleep
there.
last night? Was the baby up crying? Is it sweating on the train? You're getting
Yeah.
trend dreams, whatever. Yeah, absolutely. And
So
that's just on that aspect.
let's talk about a
Even
couple.
sleep can be noted, Steve. But let's talk about these other ones as well.
Yeah, and
One of the ones.
sleep is important to keep
So
track of
some of these,
too.
as I said, are daily, and some of these are weekly, some of these are monthly. I would argue here, Steve, that the next one is blood test is a little bit less frequent, and we typically ask people to try it if you can as a minimum. And again, it's down to the money, the cost, the time, etc. But we try to get you to do what we call pre's before a stack starts, during a stack, and post cycle therapy after the stack is finished. So that would be the absolute minimum. Some people talk about health phases, and what they mean is to bring their markers for their blood test down into healthy ranges, should I say, before they restart, or if they're cruising before they start to push back up into a blast. So, for example, and Steve's very good at this, even better than I am, but the most of these are fairly straightforward to read anyway. It's just knowing what to look for when you're reading it. You want blood tests. We will talk about uncapped, meaning it can go as high as the machine can register on the testosterone levels, but we're looking for specific markers. And again, understanding how blood tests works, very simple. Typically, we'll have your number, and then in brackets, there'll be a number that's appropriate for your age. So, for example, testosterone we know ranges from roughly 300, 350 up to about 900 naturally. Typically, with a sensible cycle, it's not unusual to see 12, 15, or even up to 2,000 nanograms a deciliter, depending on the way it's measured. And we have seen even higher numbers when people are doing grams and grams a week. And that's just one thing, your good and bad cholesterol and so on and so forth. And again, these are interesting markers. Even the way you do blood tests, and I've touched upon this on the forum, for example, training will change your creatinine levels, not creatine, but creatinine levels, your BUN levels, and so on and so forth. So talk a little
Before
bit about the importance of including blood tests.
Yeah, before you start a cycle, very important to get the blood work done and log it. This way you have it as a reference point. It's your baseline. You can go back and read it. We have a guy right now. I saw his post a couple days ago, or maybe even yesterday. He posted. He's like, I ran a cycle for 16 months. He called it a cycle. It's not really cycling, but that's besides the point.
I get 16 months, Steve. Right.
And then he's like, my testosterone levels are like 200. I'm worried about my fertility, blah, blah, blah. So I told him, I was like, dude, did you get blood, did you get blood work before you started your cycle? Because if you got blood work before you started your cycle, maybe your testosterone levels were in the 200s before you even started
Yes.
in the first place.
Yes.
But
Let's
now
have a
you don't
look.
know. Maybe it was 800, maybe it was 600, maybe it was 500. We don't know. So you're stressing yourself out about where your blood work is now. Maybe it was low before you even started using such a long a steroid run. But we don't know because you didn't get blood work prior. So it's very, very hard. I'd get fertility tested and I would get your blood work done before you ever touch steroids and log it. This way you have it as a reference point. You can go back and check and see where that number is. This way in the future, if your testosterone levels don't bounce, you'll at least know, yeah, I screwed up. I ran steroids too long. My HPTA got shut down. But at least you'll have a reference point where you can go back and say, you know what, I need to get my levels back to this number. And in his case, he doesn't know. For all he knows, maybe his testosterone levels were always low. So he has no way to know that. So it's very, very important to
Yes.
do that. Body weight measurements, very important to know your full stats and update
Yes.
them as you go. It doesn't have to be daily, but getting it
No.
at least every 2 weeks is smart. Getting your body fat tested. Some people go get it professionally tested where
Yeah.
they can get a full body scan and stuff. Is that necessary? No. But if you have access to that, why the hell not? For $50 or $100, get that done.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Some gyms
posting
offer it as part of the full membership. Yeah.
but posting your pictures and we can give you an idea where your body fat is. And that's important. We're going to get into pictures in a second, so I don't want to dig too much into it. And the last thing I want to talk about too
No.
is history. History. Knowing your history is crucial. Have
Yes.
you used steroids in the past? Were you overweight or skinny? What history do you have training? Because body and muscle memory is crucial. So it's very important to post your history. Tell us a little bit about your history going back. Were you an athlete back in school? Were you an athlete in high school? Were you an athlete in college? And
How long have you been training, Steve? How old are you? As Steve's already touched upon the story thing, you might have been out of shape massively before, but lost a lot of fats. You've got loose skin, but now you want to add
yep.
muscle. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, body weight and all that, and then that goes with measurements. So as much you can give, you don't have to. Some people like to measure their arms and measure their chest and all that stuff. You don't have to do that, but some people like to do it. If you're a bodybuilder, and obviously it's good to measure that because if your arms are 16 inches and you're like, I want to get 20-inch arms within the next 1 or 2 or 3 years, whatever, measuring them is going to be crucial, but you got to measure them obviously at the right time. You can't measure it a cold muscle and then measure it right after you work out. It's not going to be
Yeah.
a stable measurement. So yeah, all this stuff is
Yeah,
important.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
get
In
into
the same way,
photos. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah,
Mhm.
photos. So let me talk about the photos here, Steve. And arguably, the measurement and the weighing thing applies here as well. And that is ideally, and I'll do this first, ideally, the same time of day, same time of week, whatever. Because it's no good, as Steve said, measuring yourself pumped, for example. And what about when you first get out of bed in the morning when you should be your lightest and dehydrated versus hydrated and full as fuck with a nice run with roast dinner in your belly of a night time? I've literally gone a body weight on a Friday and a body weight on a Monday. And if I've traveled over the weekend, including a Friday and a Monday for competitions or to go and visit relatives, etc., and I can lose 4 pounds in a weekend. So really, I want to be measuring myself in that example Thursday and do it the same again next Thursday and so on and so forth. This applies to photographs. So one of the things you can include, and we see this quite regularly, and especially with the athletes on the form that are competing, is comparison photographs. We also see it to a lesser degree, but still important for those people trying to make a transformation, and especially Steve if they want to get leaner and into better shape, and especially when they've been or are overweight, carrying a lot of body fat. And I just this morning was looking at one of the logs, Steve, where even a little bit of work that he's done already, he's dropped 15 or 20 pounds. And I don't always see what I'd like to see when people put up comparison pictures. Week by week, you won't necessarily see great differences. But
Yeah.
in this example, I think it was 3 months, and you could absolutely
And let
see that
me,
he got
yeah, let
really
me,
well.
I'll give you the floor on this because I know you're the photo expert, but I just want to say this. You see yourself every day in the mirror. You see yourself twice a day in the mirror, 5 times a day, 10 times a day. I look at myself a lot in the mirror. Every time I walk into the bathroom, I look at myself in the mirror. So you're not going to notice the changes over the course of months. You know, it's hard. It's hard to notice that. But if you put pictures up, a before picture right when you start your log, and then you put another picture up a month later, and another picture up a month later, and so on, then you can see the progress in those pictures. So, you know, your brain plays tricks on you. Sometimes, you know, you look at yourself, as Mobster said, multiple times a day. You may look 5 pounds fatter, you know,
Even
later in
at
the
the
day.
corner of your eye with reflections indoors and mirrors and
That's
sock
why it's
fronts and
important to
whatever.
get these
Yeah.
photos up. And
Yes.
again, crop. You can crop out your tattoos. You can crop out your
Yes.
face. Keep yourself
Yeah.
anonymous. That's a smart way, though. You don't want a coworker seeing your pictures or whatever. That's great. That's a great
Mm.
idea, and that's completely acceptable, just as long as we're seeing your physique. Talk about more about cropping, Mobster.
Yeah. So look, right. And again, I'm thinking of the social media aspect there, Steve. I've got, or my mum has, family albums, 2 or 3 family albums, and the best photographs back in the day were always the ones what we call grab or casual shots. The social media age, and this applies to bodybuilding and these kind of pictures as well, is quite not, and especially with bodybuilding, we pose. We move to a different part of the restaurant, take a picture of the food. We're at the club. Let's all smile together. I'm going to take a picture of us having a great night out. Well, why is this? Why do you have to pose if you're having a great night out? So the same thing applies to these photographs, like Steve, and especially the subjectivity. So I don't give a fuck if you're smiling or not smiling in these comparison pictures, and for the benefits of the log. Doesn't matter if you're happy or unhappy in terms of how you look and whether you're wearing glasses, whether your hair's right, whether you've trimmed your moustache, whatever. What really matters, and this is especially true of before and after type pictures that used to be done, and even the tricks that they used to use in these before and after pictures, and why we want you to not use those tricks is, and it's thus we the best pictures, and there's 2 or 3 loggers on the forum that do this quite well all the time, is they either put up a piece of cloth, you can literally stand in front of your closed drapes. Ideally, you want a single light source above your head. You don't want to have a light from the left or the right. It could be like a stage light, but what you really want is the same goddamn light, regardless. The same goddamn background, like even the same shorts or briefs or whatever else. And photography speaking, you've got 2 ways of doing a body type shot. One is where the person is sitting down slightly and looking up at your chest or your face. And that's because if you stand on stage, that's how a judge is going to see you. So I'd actually ask you to do this both ways. That way, A, you can see what the judge sees, the light of judges, and B, talking in terms of actual physique shots, I see some amazing shots at midday, Steve, which is the best time if you go outside under a bright sunshine, or chest directly at chest or slightly elevated and looking at your eyes. That's actually a great way to take pictures of people, full stop, focusing on the eyes. Maybe the nose. And then what you're getting there is the same background, the same detail, the same everything, the same pose, ideally, especially if you're posing, and so on and so forth. What was the other thing you just reminded me of, Steve?
Yeah, let me touch upon that. Shaving, tanning, and oiling up.
Oh, yes. Sorry. Yes. Right. So
So
let me
so
talk
touch on
about that.
those three things,
Yeah.
why it
Yeah.
matters, because it really makes a big difference.
Huge difference. We've literally, and I, again, this is where the trick photography used to be used for the before and afters. So in the trick photography, they would have a scruffy pushing their belly out, shorts halfway down their fucking thighs with no tan, And then one of the tricks, this has literally been done, and it was very, people started to learn how it was being done. They got the person to comb their fucking hair, shave the hair off their chest and their arms and whatever else, hitch the shorts up so you could see more of the tops of the thighs, and pose better. And this was within an hour, Steve. And instantly, and I've talked about a social media person, instantly the physique just looked better. They pulled their stomach in and they go, oh, product wise, responsible product wise. It's done in a fucking hour. So the idea again, and especially applies to guys that we see on the forum that do the pictures the way that I've suggested already, they will be shaved. And why are they shaved? Well, first off, it makes it a lot easier to shave now than it does when you're really hairy pre-competition, because you can get shaving rashes and you want all that shit to calm down. And number two, of course, is absolutely so they get to see all of the detail. If you've got a really hairy chest, are you seeing the inner and outer chest, where it ties into the delts, where it ties onto the sternum? If you've got hairy forearms, is it hiding some of the muscular detail? Perversely, Steve, I could have what I call my ice cream belly, but my forearms are quite muscular at certain poses. One of the things on comparison pictures, and I use myself as an example again, one of my on-off, now and again, spotting each other in the gym training buddies, Callum, who works at the local Asda, like Walmart, is probably 215 pounds right now, and he's probably put on 5 to 10 pounds in the last 12 months. And he absolutely looks bigger than he did last year. Absolutely. And of course, I mean, he's occasionally showed him horrendous things to do with his calves and quad training and so on and so forth. And I've literally said to him, you look bigger than you used to. And then we've stood in front of each other in the mirror. And of course, I forget I'm 100 fucking pounds bigger than Callum. I don't see myself in that way, because even when I do see myself, I'm on my goddamn own. I've not got someone next to me to compare myself. So I've got someone who's kind of muscular and kind of big, and I just fucking like, I'm another person again. So literally that kind of stuff. And again, how thinking about if you're doing a photo shoot, how's the photo going to look? If you're doing a competition, how's that going to look? And the way that this needs to be presented. You cannot go on stage lacking oil. I've seen top professional bodybuilders, Steve, where the tan, they don't have their faces tan, and that's not unusual, but they have oil or glaze on their bodies, and certain areas are highly glazed, sometimes where the detail is, and other areas have got no oil or glaze. So again, all of these things make a difference. Think again, you can do most of these things for yourself, but think again, the difference between someone taking a picture of me and Steve enjoying a cheesecake and me and him going to a professional photographic studio, and how they would make the cheesecake look such and such. They would present the table. They'd make sure that the back drapes was the right color for mine and Steve's skin, and so on and so forth. They would make sure we got a bit of makeup to hide any skin issues, make sure our hair's, make sure my beard's trimmed, etc., etc., etc. And this is all to sell the cheesecake. And that's the reason why these things are done in that particular way. But here, it's not necessarily that we're trying to flog anything, Steve. It's that we want these aspects controlled, so that it's that much easier, subjectively or otherwise, or subjectively or otherwise, to make a comparison. And the best way to do it, and Steve and I have touched upon this, and photographs are good for this as well. If, for example, one of the members takes a picture day one of the cycle, it's going to be an 8 to 12 week cycle using Para Pharma products. Here's how I look on day one: shorts hitched up, flexing the muscles, body shaved, etc., etc., neutral background. And then 8 to 12 weeks later, let's say it's a lean bulk, Steve. So not only have they got a little bit leaner, they've added 5, 6, 7, maybe even 10 pounds of tissue. We should absolutely be able to see from those pictures a fucking difference in their physique. Now, on a day-by-day basis, week-by-week basis, as Steve said earlier on, and I've included myself, we don't always see it. But if we put those pictures, we take a copy of the day one picture and we post that into the latest log, the week 12 log, and then we put the week 12 picture side by side, whether it's a side chest, front relaxed, double bicep, whatever, completely relaxed, whatever you fucking like, Steve. Which every person that clicks on that log should absolutely, including the member, be able to see a difference. Oh, look, I can see that my waist has gone down. I've got more cheekbones. My abs are popping. There's a vein in my biceps that you can't see at all. And even if you are sort of the most negative person possible, and it's really, really hard for you. If we turn around and say, no, maybe even we do it, Steve, we go on and say, got more veins, you've got better abs, your quads are more detail. And they go back and they go, do you know what? Yeah, I can. My waist has gone down. I can see that vein. I can see my quads. I can absolutely, guys are fucking right. One of the classic examples we've given with logs is Steve and I said, week 1, you take this picture of whatever else, and in week 12, you go and visit someone who hasn't seen you for fucking 12 weeks. And literally, I think 3 days ago, Steve, on the forum, we had someone who said a person come up to them, 2 people, in fact, came up to them in a gym and said, you look like you're getting stronger. You look like you're getting bigger. What are you doing? So we've absolutely seen this for people because it's hard for us on a daily basis.
You're
So that it's super, super important with photographs. Yeah.
you're the photo expert. I've seen people using clickers. They put a clicker in their mouth and they
Yeah,
apply.
I don't like all that stuff. I tell you what I do, and especially applies for
So
me
how does
doing the
someone take
weightlifting.
good pictures? That it's not a good idea
So
to do that
yeah,
that way.
okay, well, so that, I tell you
If
what
you
I
don't
do.
have
Very
anybody to take
hard.
pictures for you, or you're not
I
comfortable.
ask. I don't. I don't. A lot of the
So let's say
members, and this is
hypothetically you don't have anyone to take a picture. What's the best way? Is it a selfie? You don't think the
okay. Yeah.
clicker?
So I would probably, and this is what I've done. It's one of the tricks I've actually suggested, and it works well for me with the weightlifting stuff as well. Use a video. Don't try and take pictures. I've seen people with the little clickers in their mouths, and they'll be posing. We got one of the American buddies looking to compete soon, and I've actually seen top professional bodybuilders do. So they go into the posing room. They've got a clicker. Oh God, please just get someone to fucking come and ask you. But at least if that person knows what they're doing, they can get a good picture. Um, I use video because you can always screen grab from a video. So it's a lot easier to do the poses and look in the mirror and concentrate on what you're doing and have like a 3 minute video and then just take a screen grab of the front double and the front relax and the rear lat spread and then side chest and the abs and thigh shot and just screen grab those from the video. But being sure to hold each pose just long enough so the camera to focus and get good images of yourself. Ideally, again, and again, I've seen this, people will put the camera on a table, leaning back on a little bracket that some of them have, my camera does, but it's actually better off, as I said earlier, on a bookshelf or even on a piece of equipment in the gym. People say that they don't have someone to ask, and yet the majority of pictures are taken at the gym. Just fucking ask. I know that this whole thing about filming at the gym, which is kind of annoying, people don't like to be in film. Joey Swole, I'm looking at you when I say this on the show, etc., etc. But equally, Joey's all about the community. So just ask someone, and especially someone if they've done pictures for you before, because if they did a tidy picture before, they should be able to do a tidy picture now. Gym owners and PTs, your prep coach, etc. And again, same conditions. One of the members trains in a gym with neon lighting, and I don't think it's great for his physique in terms of you don't have those lights on stage and overhead single bulb is way better. But if he takes it into the same conditions and the same spot in the gym every single time, some of our members train on their own in garages, early in the morning when there's not going to be a lot of people around, late at night, on the weekends, and so on and so forth. So yes, I understand there's a difficulty. So there are ways of doing it for yourself, like I've talked about. Not a big fan of the tripods and getting in the way of people in the gym, but literally, as an example, Steve, some of the machines we have in the gym that I train at a low profile, meaning they're only about 4 or 5 feet off the floor at the top of the frame that the machine's made out of. So that's perfect height for my chest. I'm 6'3". There'll be another piece of equipment in the gym. You've even got little brackets that you can affix to the back of your phone that grab hold of a tube or an upright on a bench or something like this. And again, they won't get in the way. And it's the perfect height. Ideally, you choose the one that's chest height or eye height, like I said before. And it should only take you, honestly, Steve, once you've done it a few times, 30 seconds to 3 minutes maximum at the end of the workout. But again, we have someone on the desk in the gym that I train in. I think the gym I train in is about 4,000 square feet. I'll just get the owner, who's often on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Lewis is on Tuesdays and Thursdays, or Ken, who opens the gym early on, and they're more than happy to come and take pictures. People do get, it's really weird. We're online, on social media and on the forums, presenting our physique and what we're doing and the progress that we're hopefully recording to thousands of people, and then kind of weirdly embarrassed about asking someone at the gym to take a picture. Yes, sometimes people won't know what they're doing. If you've got someone else in the gym that you know serious about their shit, takes them 30 seconds to take a picture of your front double. Click, focus, eye height, chest right, hold the pose, click, 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 fame. 3 or 4 shots, find the nicest one, crop the background out, do the stuff that Steve said about removing tattoos and cropping your head if need be, if you don't want to be identified. And Bob's your uncle. I'm more than comfortable. That's probably an indication of my personality
You
to
should
ask
do
people.
bodybuilding pictures.
Not with my physique.
No, 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 no. To take people's
Oh, I
pictures.
have done. I
You could
have
be a
done. I
cameraman.
just as a side story, Steve, on this show, many years ago, I had my little Muscle Mob magazine, so regular listeners will know about this, and I had press passes or invitations to certain Mr. Universe, a EFBB Grand Prix. I think Dorian Yates and Kerry Kay's got on that one, and Kerry gave me a press pass, and included was Ronnie Coleman, Jay Cutler, Simon Robinson, Dexter Jackson, and others. Simon was the guest. He had a terrible car crash, had to have one of his leg amputated. And I think Dennis James, Dexter, and a few of the others came out on stage and posed with him. And I took those kind of pictures, some of my better photographs, ironic, with top professional bodybuilders in the world at that time. At Mr. Universe, I was able to do that. And of course, at certain events, including award ceremonies, etc., that I was even awarded at myself, we would take those kind of pictures. And so the trick isn't necessarily to be a good photographer as such. It's just imagine what you want the photograph to show. With digital photography, it's a lot easier than with film photography. Take 1,000 fucking photographs, Steve. Lose 999, keep the one that's good. It's really that kind of easy. The video thing, like I said, is easy. The lighting is probably the hardest thing sometimes to do, which is, again, if I was doing it in a gym environment, we have good mirrors and bad mirrors, meaning if I stand in one spot, we've got skylights in our gym. We've also got overhead lights, and they've switched from the normal light into the LED stuff. The LED is much brighter, and it's a much whiter light. And there are 2 or 3 spots in the gym that even my muscles look good in. And also, I was doing this yesterday when I was standing in front of one mirror doing something else earlier on, and I went across to another side of the gym, and my arm looked that much bigger. It was like being in a fucking hall of mirrors in a circus or something, Steve. Why does my arm look bigger in this mirror? Someone should take a picture. But again,
Would
realistically,
you
all
oil
things
them
being
down?
considered, do it in the same spot. I'd actually get you really to try and do it in the worst lighting, because in the worst lighting or the worst spot, if you look good in the worst spot, you're going to look fucking
You should
amazing
do
under good lighting. You can look amazing and so on and so forth. So
you
that's another
should
trick as
you should oil them down before the pictures.
well. I know that the our gym
I
owner,
think you'd enjoy that.
not Gareth does. He literally has people even compete from other gyms will come on a Sunday because most of the judging is on a Saturday and
I
the
think you
things
should
on
oil
Sunday and
down
Sunday.
Body
And he does it.
Monster. You should oil down
Oh
Body
god, yeah,
Monster.
that'd be something for the prison cell. I mean, here's the biggest problem, right? And this is the reasons why we want you to track these changes. So let's get towards the end of the show here, Steve. The biggest problem is being analytical. And what do I mean? I mean self-analytical. I said that in another show that humans are more hormonal than we realize, less subjective than we realize. Some days we could be struggling to pay a bill and we forget that in the United States of America and the United Kingdom here, Great Britain, we are amongst the 1% in the whole fucking world. We have more money, more food, nicer stuff than anywhere else in the world.
But I
So
mean,
when we're
your
doing stuff,
internet sucks, though. You have to admit,
oh
though.
yeah, my internet sucks, specifically mine. But yeah, and even then, Steve, there are places in the world with no internet.
There's
So I'm still
places
quite
like in the fourth world that have better
oh
internet than
crikey.
you.
Probably, yeah. I'm getting
Even
that
in
bit confused
Antarctica,
now.
they have faster internet than you.
Oh, yeah, but Steve, that's because I've got all them nice vehicles and big radios and shit. Yeah, I mean, look, all joking aside, the ability to analyze ourselves can be very difficult. We touched upon the sort of logistical ways it's done earlier in the show. We talked about the subjective stuff with regards to the self-image that we see even when we're taking pictures. It's very easy to see that if you did more sets and reps last time and your chest looked better. It's very easy to see, especially if you included the information that you sat a different way on a machine, and that's the way you sit on this machine again because you forgot from last time and so on. So yeah, try to be as subjective and self-analyzing as you possibly can. Don't allow your mood in that regards to get in the way.
Yeah.
You might be feeling miserable as fuck, Steve, but your bench has gone up 20 pounds. You might be feeling unhappy with your lot,
Right.
and yet you're doing more sets and more reps than you've ever done before. You did 10,000 steps yesterday and 8,000 the day before. I don't care what mood you're in, you still did 2,000 more steps. So be as analytical as possible. We're
Yep.
also talking here, Steve, with that Para Pharma. Look, with if you again, you can come onto the forum when we're talking about training logs and tracking changes, and literally put training logs and Para Pharma into the search. And I guarantee you, mine included, because I've done one, will include a log that I run using Para Pharma products and other people too. Talk a little bit about that,
Yeah.
Stephen, why many of our members use Para Pharma.
Yeah, and then that's a great point too about Para Pharma. Very important too. Once you get your Para Pharma products, post up a touchdown picture because it's very good to see that. This way, other people can see what you got, and those touchdown pictures are wonderful for the forum as well because other people can see, hey, this person is getting really good results. I want to get good results too. I don't want to get ripped off. I want to use a legitimate brand. Wow, this Para Pharma stuff looks really good. So posting your pictures helps other people not get ripped off, and that's important. I've been ripped off in my past. Mobster, you've been ripped off in the past.
Yep,
I've ordered products, never got it. I've ordered
yep,
products that have been fake or underdosed. It
yes,
really hits a sore spot with me. So Parapharma, when you order from Parapharma, you know you're getting legitimate gear. You know you're getting high quality. You know you're getting great prices. They have awesome discounts too. We have threads on the forum with
yes,
promotions on a monthly basis from
monthly,
Parapharma.
yes, yep,
They have great. Sometimes they'll have freebie offers
yes,
with
deals, percentages
yeah.
off, ways to save using Bitcoin, you name it, every single month. It's not the same every month. It
Yeah.
does change,
But that's
and
a
the
nice
offers are
thing
there all
about
the
the
time.
that's the nice thing about the forum. You can come on the forum and find that. So if you're looking for Parapharma, come on the forum and we'll lead you in the right direction with Parapharma. But you don't have to worry about Parapharma yet. So it's excellent for sure.
Listen, guys, the purpose of, and this includes Para Pharma again, Steve, of having this kind of information available benefits you, and you are number one. You are listening to this show because you want to be informed. You want to know about Para Pharma for the same reason, and you're going to have a training log because it benefits you in the ways that we just described. But trust me on this. If you want to know about Para Pharma and training logs, you can come in, like Steve just said, and look at other training logs where they're running the products and literally see the transformation that they made. So what ends up happening with a training log like this, with the information, is that you could literally post your week 1 and week 12 the way that I've just described, have an absolutely amazing, great journey and a great result, and look just the best you've ever looked in your life. And it doesn't just benefit you, but it benefits every person else reading. It even benefits me and Steve if we come on there and post some positive comments and try to help you. Because in that way, we know that we've made your journey better. We know that we've helped the result be the one that you wanted. And then people will, the amount of people that will just read your log and not post is probably 10 times the number of people or more, 100 times sometimes. And you can see that just by the number of views that you get, the number of people that are responding and posting and assisting you, like myself and Steve. And then you start to realize that your journey has become their journey. You are inspiring others. And it means if you wanted to, if you had a big old fat belly, Steve, and you dropped 20, 30 pounds and you got into the best shape of your fucking goddamn life, you've had a great result. But every other person who was holding 20 or 30 pounds saw your journey, saw how you did that with Para Pharma, and is blown the fuck away. It makes them want to start their journey. And we get them to come on the forums, create a log, and the amount of people you're helping is honestly, it's probably 100-fold, Steve. Please note, as always, we are not doctors and the opinions are ours. It is our view and based on our experience and views on the topic. A podcast for informational purposes and entertainment only. The freedom of speech and the First Amendment applies.